Hey, what's up, Koa Class? It's Sarah Wilson. Hey, sorry having a couple of little technical difficulties getting on with you, but listen, I am delighted, I'm honored, humbled to get to be with you on close day nonetheless, right? Close day on a short month, so I'm sure you guys are probably thinking like I am, right? Like, get to it, sis. It's close day, and here I am talking about vulnerability, okay? And so if you're noticing a very different look than the last time I was here, it's because I'm talking about vulnerability, right? And I wanted to hide behind my wig because this is my current season of life. And so, you guys, I wanted to model for you what we're talking about, right? Because how do we talk about vulnerability and not do vulnerability? So you guys, here it is in all of its full glory, the baby hawk, okay? And so we're just gonna rock it today, and we're gonna talk about vulnerability, and we're gonna talk about vulnerability on close day because, to be honest, Arbonne is a vulnerable place, right? And we're gonna talk more about why that is, and we're gonna talk about some examples of things that happen in a typical Arbonne business for most of us. But you guys, I really, when I was thinking about that today, I can't think of a more vulnerable day than close day, right? It's a day where we've put big goals out, right, to the world. We've committed to things, to our teams, to our families, to the people watching. And it's a very vulnerable place for a lot of us. And so I hope that this fills your cup today and gives you something to walk out of this lunch break with going, I can do this, right? There are places where I can be vulnerable, where I can be brave, where I can be courageous. And so you guys, really quick, before we kind of get into the role that vulnerability has to play in leadership, I wanted to give us a couple of working definitions of what that is, because I thought it was so funny. I posted on my personal wall yesterday just the word vulnerability and asking people a question like, do you experience this? And it was like crickets. It was like crickets. And so what's crazy, and we're going to talk about it, is how we love vulnerability in other people, but gosh, it scares the mess out of us in ourselves, right? And so what is this vulnerability thing? Is this people walking around crying all the time? No. What vulnerability is, though, is this being exposed to the possibility of being harmed, right? Of being in danger. Vulnerability is making ourselves susceptible to being wounded, to being hurt. Vulnerability is making ourselves open to criticism, rejection, disappointment. Vulnerability, you guys, the umbrella of vulnerability is uncertainty, risk, and emotional exposure, okay? Uncertainty, risk, and emotional exposure. Brene Brown, that's my girl, y'all. If y'all haven't read her stuff, I've got her books here, so don't forget to talk about them. But Brene Brown is basically a shame and vulnerability researcher, storyteller, okay? And I first discovered her work back in 2013. She's got a TED Talk that as she says, accidentally went viral on the power of vulnerability, right? And Brene talks about in that book, and I can relate so much, and I feel like probably a lot of us in Arbonne can. You know, we grew up with very black and white, very right and wrong, a very much a get or done kind of mindset. And most of us never really learned how to deal with uncertainty, how to deal with risk, how to manage the risk that comes in that emotionally, right? And so, you guys, vulnerability is flat out uncomfortable. Can we be honest? It's uncomfortable, right? Our tendency is not to lean in when things are uncomfortable, right? It's to run, right? It's to bolt, it's to hide, it's to isolate. You guys, our default is to turn and bolt. Like, it's from impending, you guys, even suspected danger. Sometimes it's not even the danger itself. It's just the threat of it. It's just what we got going on up here about what might happen, right? That usually is enough for most of us to want to hit the door running, right? And so we love certainty. We love certainty. We love knowing that the outcome is guaranteed. I can give you guys an example, but we want to know that it's guaranteed, right? The finished product, the outcome is a promise. It's a done deal before we even commit to the process. And, you know, just last night I was saying to my husband, like, this is what I said to him. I said, baby, I don't mind sacrifice. I can do hard. I just need to know that it's going to work, right? Because if it's not, I'm not sure that it's worth it. I'm not sure that it's worth it. And you guys, I don't know if you've ever had that thought about your business or about any other area of life, but by golly, we're wired to want to know how it ends, right? You guys, but here's the thing. Unfortunately, most of our most important experiences in life are going to involve uncertainty, right? Love, belonging, trust, joy, creativity, all of those involve uncertainty. And if we shut down vulnerability, we shut down opportunity. So you guys, our inability to really lean in to those, to the discomfort, right? Our inability to lean into to discomfort limits the fullness of our human experience, right? In our business, in our relationships, in our home, out in the world. You guys, entrepreneurship, like what we do, is all about vulnerability. It's all about vulnerability all day, every day. You guys, network marketing, what? You guys, this is a ridiculously vulnerable battlefield. I mean, seriously? This is a vulnerable battlefield. You guys, I mean, like, let's just talk about some things that we do when we start an Arbonne business. We tell the world, right? We tell the world that we've said yes to one of those things. And you know that the haters and the dream stealers are about to tear you a new one, right? People got an opinion and they're going to tell you why you're crazy and all the reasons why it's not going to work. Is that vulnerable? You betcha. You guys, what about this? You send a heartfelt message to a dear friend about the business. And what do you get back? Crickets, right? No response. Thanks. I see you read it, right? Vulnerable. How about putting a challenge out for your team and nobody goes for it? Anybody? Yeah, you've been there. Hosted an event for your clients or a meeting for your team and nobody came. Vulnerable. What about you told your team you were going region and you didn't? Vulnerable. Your best friend quits the business and it feels like she quit you. Vulnerable, right? I lost my title. Vulnerable. You guys, let me tell you what Brene would say about what Arbonne is. She'd say, and Lindsay Hepburn, sweet thing, since you said a cuss word last week, if Mother Teresa said a cuss word, I can too. Okay, so you guys, if you got kids in the ears, in the room, earmuffs, right? Brene Brown would call Arbonne a recipe for a vulnerability shitstorm, okay? Right? Like all day, every day, you guys, this is what we do. We have to put ourselves out there. We have to show up and be seen, and it is risky. It's risky. You guys, the conundrum here in vulnerability is that vulnerability is the first thing that I look for in you. It's the first thing that I look for in you, and it's the last thing I'm willing to show you in me. In you, when I see it in you, it's daring and it's courage, but when I see it in me, it just feels like weakness. It just feels like weakness, right? Anybody? You guys, vulnerability is about showing up and being seen, though. It's tough to do that. Let's be honest, it's tough to do that, to show up and be seen when we're terrified about what other people might think, about what they might see. And so you guys, when we're fueled by fear of what other people think, or that gremlin, anybody's got some gremlins? They'll be talking all the time about what that gremlin's whispering in your ear when he says, you're not good enough. Who do you think you are, right? You're not good enough. You guys, it's tough enough to show up. It's tough enough to show up when we're worried about what people think and we're worried about that voice that says, you don't even have what it takes, right? And you guys, we end up in Arbonne and in other places of life, even in our own homes sometimes with our own families, we end up hustling for our worthiness instead of standing in it because we already possess it. So you guys, when we start attaching our self-worth to what we produce, to what we earn, right? To web stats and to that paycheck, then being real, right? Being authentic, being real, showing up in our true selves in the world, it gets really dicey. It gets really, really dicey. And so you guys, I want to give you just a little glimpse into my story and the power of vulnerability, because 3 hard years almost into a cancer journey for me has yielded at times along these last 3 years some dismal personal stats. Okay, a paycheck cut in half, and I'm staring at my 2nd year in a row to not walk the stage at GTC. You guys, had I not found freedom over perfection and performance and people pleasing, I'm gonna tell you, there is a good possibility that this girl would be completely checked out of the game. Okay, you guys, had I not fully and deeply and personally in here learned where my worth comes from, I wouldn't even be in this group, much less feel worthy enough to sit in front of you and pour anything out over you precious people, and especially with his hair. Okay, you guys, I think when we all dig down deep enough into our own vulnerable moments, right? I had one when I turned this camera on and looked at this, right? Because I thought, this is not going to be a video I ever want to watch again. You guys, I think at the root, what we will always find is the fear that I'm not good enough. That I'm not good enough. And I don't know if any of you have been able to put your finger on that yet, that you wrestle with that in this business and in life. But you guys, it's a lie. It's lies, 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 okay? It is the enemy and his stinking accusations. Because guess what? When I'm buying that BS, and that's what it is, guess what happens? Sister girl, paralyzed, right? I mean, I'm stuck in the lie. I'm believing it wholeheartedly that I'm not good enough. And so I'm paralyzed, you guys. We're ineffective. I mean, just exit stage left, 0 threat, taken out by our own stinking doubt. That's what we do. We take ourselves out with our own doubt. And you guys, that was the enemy's plan from the beginning of time. It's what he did to Eve in the garden. He will always turn what God said into a question, right? So it may sound something like this. God may have said, hey, sister, my grace is sufficient for you. My power and my strength are made perfect in your weakness, right? And then Satan comes along and says, did God really say he was strong in your weakness? I mean, have you seen your weakness? Even that thing? Ha, right? Who do you think you're kidding, right? You guys, stop wondering if you're good enough. Know that you are, and start acting like it. Start acting like it. So you know what? What's cray-cray is that all of us want to be courageous. All of us want to be courageous. But every act of courage is actually an act of vulnerability. We all want to be brave. You guys, I was thinking about last night, I was thinking about our GTC shirt from a couple of years ago, the purple and gold, which I love. And it says, be bold, be brave, be you. And I was thinking, maybe it should have said, risk all, be vulnerable, and be unapologetically true. But that doesn't sound nearly as fun, does it? And logo worthy. But you guys, that's what's true. That's what brave, that's what courage actually is. It's vulnerability. You guys, my team and I have started some accountability calls, group accountability Zooms on Monday. And not this week, but last week, one of our area managers said, we were talking about our biggest win for the week and biggest obstacles. And she said, I'm not afraid of anything. And yet, you guys, her calendar and her results really said otherwise, right? Like there was a disconnect between what I was hearing and what I was seeing. And so listening between the lines and asking her some vulnerable questions, we discovered that she was avoiding reaching out and connecting because she had done so previously in a way that was first and authentic to herself. And P.S., you guys, anytime that you're not being true to you, there will be rub in your spirit. There will be a rub. And second, that experience had left her feeling really rejected, okay? And so, you guys, that's homework number one. What I want you to do is I want you to identify the fear, right? And you might not even know that it's a fear. Like, you know, that beautiful area manager didn't even know it was a fear. I'm not afraid of anything. And I'm like, okay, you're not afraid of anything, but there's something you're not doing. The question is why, right? So even if you don't even know that it's a fear, do you feel something funky in here that's keeping you from getting in the arena, right? That's keeping you from entering into the arena. That's keeping you from showing up and being seen. Because recognizing those moments, when we can do that, when we can go, right? Like I'm feeling something. I don't know what it is. I can't even put a word to it yet. I just know it isn't right. I don't like it, right? When we can recognize that we're emotionally triggered, you guys, it's paramount to what happens next. It's paramount. So the decision to reckon with that emotion, to wrestle out what's happened, right? And name that feeling, right? Eventually you will get to a name and you'll know what you're feeling. But you guys, it's huge. It's huge. And it's only after that reckoning, right? That recognition that I can even think about rumbling in the story, figuring out what that triggered in me, why it's so, and be able to move forward in that. And so you guys, all healthy rumbles lead us here, right? All healthy rumbles, I walk away from that going, you know, even though blank, right? Which may mean even though I didn't hit my goal at the end of this month, I am still worthy of love and belonging. Okay. So you guys, unhealthy on the other hand, can I tell you what an unhealthy story looks like, right? Because I lived it real solid for about 35, 36 years. So I got this down, right? So when we don't rumble with the story, when we just sit in this stuff and we're not even sure why we're doing what we're doing, why we're not doing what we know we should be doing, when we're not willing to risk vulnerability and be honest with ourselves, you know what's going to happen? We're going to leak. We're going to leak. I love that word. My husband and I just finished a really incredible book called Emotionally Healthy Spirituality. It's a mouthful, and that's the worst title ever, but the book is solid. But they really talk about how when we're not honest with what's going on in here, when we don't even recognize it, much less process it, and learn how to do it different, we will leak. Right? It will come out. And for a lot of us, it comes out in things like abandonment, anger, frustration, fear, criticism, rejection, disappointment, shame, fun stuff, right? Those are fun to feel. Said nobody ever. Even more fun to talk about. Really said nobody ever. So instead, guess what we do? We armor up. We armor up. Sarah puts a wig on, right? Maybe you will recognize some of my favorite masks. Perfection. Intellectualizing. How about that? I'll just study and get real smart about it. Cynicism. Numbing. Oh my gosh. We could talk an hour about all the different ways that we numb and all of the things that we numb with. How about control? Anybody need to control when I get scared? Okay, so listen. Because somehow the mask seems safer, right? It seems less risky than letting my true self show up and be seen, because what if my true self isn't enough in the world, right? You guys, we can walk in vulnerability and authenticity, or we can be a numbed out, overthinking, non-feeling, perfectionistic, skeptical control freak. That's what we can be, right? Vulnerable and authentic, or armored. It is a conscious choice all day, every day. So friends, let me tell you this. If you desire in your heart to have something more, better, different in your business, right? In any area of life, it's not going to come at the hand of faking fine. And that's what masks are. That's what masks are. It's hiding a place that feels really unsure to me, uncertain, risky. Not sure I want to put my whole self out there. You guys, when we all do it. We've all got our personalized little treasure trunk full of our favorite masks. And all of the things that we put on when vulnerable comes knocking, right? And that feeling shows up and we're like, I don't like that, right? And so we have our default mask that we start throwing on. You guys, ending the pretending is crucial. It's as crucial as breath if we're really going to build people. And last I checked, that's actually our gig, right? It's not selling product. I mean, we kind of got to do that. But the bigger picture is that we build people, right? And we can't build people to their best selves if we're not even aware of ours. So you guys, we tell ourselves all the time, and I'm going to tell you, when I started my Arbonne business almost 12 years ago, we didn't really have this social media gig. And so what's happened in that is both good and bad. But we tell ourselves, based on what we see out there, that the world wants our highlight reel. Wrong. It's wrong. The world does not want your highlight reel. What they want is your reel, right? R-E-A-L, your real, right? And just to give you a little bit of truth, some perspective here, this is so funny. I looked it up for you today just so you would know what I'm talking about and you would actually believe me. So we got family pictures made, I don't know, November, December. It was right after I'd lost my hair, and I've got this glorious new wig, and it's just picture perfect. I got this new headshot. I post it. It gets 351 likes. Okay, awesome, right? Because it looks nice, right? Versus the day that I posted my bald, 60-year-old Nicolas Cage, receding hairline, baby mohawk, with no makeup on, straight out of bed, in my PJs, got 728 likes, twice as many. Twice as many. What's the world want? Real. Real. You guys, we're tired of the hustle. We're tired of doing it. We're tired of living it. We are hungry for the people that have the courage to say, I need help. I own that mistake, right? Or I'm not willing to define success by my title or my income anymore. You guys, people connect more with those who show their weaknesses. Right? I shared a story just a couple of weeks ago about, it was just a really hard day of struggle. And to be honest, it's been a long, hard season of struggle with my oldest daughter, who's 17. And I shared a picture of she and I, and just talked about the struggle, about how hard it is to be a teenager today, how hard it is to parent a teenager today, and how we're both failing, right? We're both failing. You guys, 551 likes. 180 comments, 15 shares. You know what I went back and looked at? I actually posted the exact same picture of she and I in Maui, where we look like, just the photo, right? No story, where it looks like we totally have it together and we're BFFs. Same photo, 5 measly likes. You guys, people don't want your perfect. They know it's a lie. I'm gonna be honest, like, we don't really trust perfect anyway. Hashtag not buying it, right? Like, we want real. You guys, so if we aren't willing to show up and be seen, if we aren't willing to embrace uncertainty and risk and emotional exposure, we're never gonna have the business that we want, the relationships we want, the finances that we want. Fullness and freedom do not exist. We're not going to get there apart from vulnerability, you guys. So really vulnerable story for you. I was in Puerto Rico in 2013, the AIT trip. Found myself on the bathroom floor with my dear friend Alyssa. And you guys, on that note, if you don't have some serious truth tellers in your life, you need to figure out who they are and get them in your corner. So I'm in that bathroom floor, and I'm reckoning with this realization that I had. I realized I hadn't been all in, okay? So this is the fall of 2013. I hadn't been all in because I'd lost 2 super dear friends to me. Left the business, felt like they left me, right? And then 2 leaders who decided to kind of go do their own thing in that season. And you guys, it felt like rejection. It felt like abandonment. It felt like, at the root, I'm not good enough. I'm not a good enough leader. I'm not a good enough friend. I'm not a good entrepreneur. You guys, for years, I had been walking in that and had been withholding. So what had happened is that I realized in that moment for years, like when that happened, and inside I didn't even know I'd done it. I had just kind of gone, yeah, you're not going to get all of me anymore, right? It's not safe. It's not safe to give my team my whole self. And so I'd been withholding for that fear of being rejected again, right? And you guys, we'd been stuck at RVP for 7 years. 7 years. And a large piece of that puzzle for me was feeling inadequate. It was feeling not enough to lead my team. And I fell into the trap of comparison, and my focus got lost to all the qualities I didn't have. Anybody relate? All the qualities I didn't have versus the ones I did. And so you guys, if you've bought that lie too, what I want you to know is that you actually cannot screw this up. You can't screw it up, because here's the thing. God brought to you those who needed what you have. Isn't that encouraging? Like, God brought the people to you that need what you have. So if you don't have it, they don't need it. They don't need it. And if they needed something that someone else had, he'd put them on their team and not yours. So can we rest in that for the love of everything holy, right? Like, you're enough. You're enough, and you have what your team needs. So you guys, I came home from that trip, and the book that was waiting for me was Brene Brown's Daring Greatly. And this book rocked my soul. It rocked my world. And for the first time, I began to find freedom from a lot of things that had kept me stuck. And I don't know if you guys know that feeling that I'm talking about, but to be set free when you don't even know you were in chains is huge. It is huge. And you guys, once I learned how to rumble that story out, that not enough story, in my head and in my heart, it was game on. It was game on. And no joke, in less than 6 months, we were a nation. Okay? So stuck for 7 years, and in half a year, like blew it out, totally different person. You guys, it's huge. And so I want to say it again. Your homework, number one, again, identify the fear. What's keeping you out of the arena? Why are you not showing up in the fullness, right? Why are you not showing up and letting your whole self and your true self be seen, right? What are the things that you know you should be doing, but you aren't? You guys, sit in it. Sit in it and go, why am I not? What happened? What happened? Because see, you know what? In 2013, sitting in that bathroom floor, before Dana Collins' words, are you all in? And I'm like, yes, of course I am, right? Because I didn't even know that I wasn't until I sat in it and went, oh, no, you're really not. Why aren't you? What happened? Because you guys, we can always track it back to what happened. Something happened. Something tripped us up. Something hit that vulnerability meter and we went, whew, I need certainty. I don't like risk. I don't like being emotionally exposed. And we pulled out, right? So you guys, what happened? Wrestle that thing out. And then your homework number 2. How many of you have seen the movie, We Bought a Zoo? We Bought a Zoo. One of my favorite line from that movie is that he says, you know, sometimes all you need is 20 seconds of insane courage. Just literally 20 seconds of embarrassing bravery. And I promise you something good, something great will come of it. So you guys, today, close day, I want to ask you, where will you be embarrassingly brave and ridiculously vulnerable? Because they're actually the same thing. Okay? They're actually the same thing. So, you guys, I knew that was going to be a good bit. And so I decided in my heart this morning that although vulnerability and authentic leadership go hand in hand, because we can't be authentic leaders if we're not willing to be vulnerable, that they were both required enough really depth that they needed to be too. So that will be my next time that I'm back with you. We will talk about authentic leadership. In the meantime, great books, Daring Greatly and Rising Strong by Brene Brown. 2 books that have done an incredible work in my soul and in my freedom. And I want to close this out with the quote from Theodore Roosevelt called The Man in the Arena. And this is actually how Brene opens the book Daring Greatly. And I think it is a beautiful summary of what vulnerability really is. And so as you think about what you've got left to do today, those places that are calling you to be vulnerable, that are calling you to be all in, that are calling you to be embarrassingly brave, I want you to think about the man in the arena, okay? And it says the man in the arena. It's not the critic that counts. It's not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit actually belongs to the man whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes up short again and again. Because there is no effort without error and shortcoming, but who does actually strive to do the deeds, who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least he fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither know victory or defeat. You guys, the credit belongs to the man in the arena. The credit belongs to you, who's in the game, who's showing up and being seen. So you guys, here's to an incredible close. Be bold, be brave, be you, right? Remember what that really means. Take risk, be vulnerable, and be so unapologetically true to the design and to the heartbeat in here. So I love you guys. Happy close day. See you soon.